Sergeant Marcus Kane crouched behind the twisted wreckage of what used to be a supply transport, his rifle ready as plasma bolts sizzled overhead. The mining colony of Kepler 442b had turned into a war zone 3 days ago when the Vorthak raiders arrived. These weren't the organized military forces of any known species. They were pirates, slavers, and worse. They hit civilian targets because they were easy prey. The evacuation was supposed to be complete by now, but intel had been wrong about the timeline. Again. Marcus and his squad were running cleanup, making sure no civilians got left behind in the chaos. The air tasted of burnt metal and ozone, while the distant sound of explosions echoed across the colony's main district. Sector 7 clear, came the voice of Corporal Chen through his comm unit. No signs of civilian presence, copy that. Moving to Sector 8, Marcus replied, keeping low as he advanced through the rubble-strewn streets. The Vorthak had a reputation for being thorough in their destruction, but they were also known for taking prisoners to sell in the outer rim slave markets. That's when he heard it, a faint whimpering sound coming from beneath a collapsed residential building. Marcus paused, listening carefully. The sound came again, definitely organic, definitely afraid. He couldn't leave without checking. Moving carefully around the debris, Marcus spotted a small gap in the rubble where part of the building's foundation had created a natural shelter. The whimpering was coming from inside. He activated his helmet's thermal scanner and detected a small heat signature huddled in the space. "Hello?" he called softly. "I'm with the Colonial Defense Force. I'm here to help." The whimpering stopped immediately. Marcus could hear labored breathing from within the shelter. "I know you're scared," he continued, setting his rifle aside and removing his helmet so whoever was inside could see his face. "But I need to get you out of here. The raiders will be back soon." Slowly, a tiny figure emerged from the shadows. Marcus had to do a double take. It was a child, but unlike any species he'd encountered before. She stood barely 3 feet tall with pale blue skin that seemed to shimmer slightly in the dim light. Her large dark eyes dominated a delicate face framed by silver hair that moved like it was underwater. She wore simple civilian clothing that was torn and dirty from hiding in the rubble. The girl looked up at Marcus with those enormous eyes, and he could see intelligence there far beyond what he'd expect from someone so small. She spoke in a voice like wind chimes, words in a language he didn't recognize. "I don't understand," Marcus said gently, activating his universal translator. The device hummed for a moment, then provided a rough translation. "Are you going to hurt me?" Marcus shook his head and held up his hands, showing he meant no harm. "No, little one. I'm here to help you. What's your name?" The girl hesitated, then spoke again. The translator rendered her words as Zara. "My family. They took them." Marcus felt his jaw clench. The Vorthak had been here. "I'm sorry, Zara. I'm going to get you somewhere safe, okay? Can you walk?" She nodded, but Marcus could see she was exhausted and probably hadn't eaten in days. Without hesitation, he scooped her up in his arms. She weighed almost nothing, like holding a bird. "Chen, Kane here. I've got a civilian survivor, unknown species, appears to be a juvenile. Moving to extraction point. Copy that, Sarge. Be advised. Vorthak patrol spotted 2 clicks from your position. Heading your way." Marcus picked up his pace, carrying Zara through the maze of destroyed buildings toward the landing zone where their transport waited. The little girl clung to his tactical vest, her small hands surprisingly strong. As they moved, Marcus noticed something odd. The air around them seemed to shimmer occasionally, and his motion sensors were picking up some kind of energy reading. He attributed it to damage from the attack and focused on getting them both to safety. They were almost to the extraction point when the Vorthak patrol found them. 6 of the reptilian pirates emerged from behind a ruined warehouse, their crude but effective weapons trained on Marcus and Zara. The lead Vorthak, distinguished by ritual scars covering his scaled face, spoke in heavily accented standard, human soldier. "Put down small one. She comes with us. You may leave." Marcus shifted Zara behind him, raising his rifle with one hand while keeping her protected with the other. "Not happening, lizard breath." The Vorthak leader hissed what might have been laughter. "Foolish. 6 of us, 1 of you. Small one is valuable, worth many credits in Sigma markets." "Then you're going to have to go through me to get her," Marcus replied, his finger finding the trigger. What happened next would puzzle Marcus for years to come. As the Vorthak raised their weapons, the air around him and Zara suddenly erupted in a brilliant silver light. The energy readings on his scanner went completely off the charts. The light formed a dome around them and the Vorthak weapons simply stopped working. Their energy cells apparently drained. The pirates looked at their useless weapons in confusion, then at the glowing dome protecting the human and the small alien child. The lead Vorthak's eyes widened in what Marcus could only describe as terror. "Impossible," the raider whispered, backing away. "The little ones are extinct. We made sure of that." Before Marcus could process what that meant, his backup arrived. Chen and the rest of the squad opened fire from the high ground, and the Vorthak scattered like leaves in a windstorm. The silver light around Marcus and Zara faded as quickly as it had appeared. "What the hell was that light show, Sarge?" Chen asked as they boarded the transport. Marcus looked down at Zara, who had fallen asleep in his arms, exhausted from whatever she had done. "I honestly have no idea," he replied. But something told him this little girl was far more than she appeared to be. As their ship lifted off from the devastated colony, Marcus couldn't shake the Vorthak leader's words. "The little ones are extinct. We made sure of that." Who was Zara really, and why did her mere presence strike fear into the hearts of hardened pirates? The answers to those questions would change everything Marcus thought he knew about the galaxy, and about humanity's place in it. The medical bay aboard the CDF cruiser Resilience hummed with quiet activity, as Dr. Sarah Martinez ran her scanner over the sleeping alien child for the third time. The readings were unlike anything in her 15 years of xenobiology experience. Zara's cellular structure defied classification, showing properties that seemed to shift between energy and matter at the quantum level. "This is impossible," Dr. Martinez muttered, checking her equipment for malfunctions. "Her DNA contains sequences I've never seen before. It's like her genetic code is written in a completely different language." Marcus stood nearby, having refused to leave Zara's side since bringing her aboard. Something about the little girl pulled at protective instincts he didn't know he had. "Is she healthy? Will she be okay?" "Physically, she's fine. Better than fine, actually. Her body seems to be healing micro-injuries at an accelerated rate. But Marcus, there's something else. Her brain activity is off the charts. She's not just intelligent. She's operating on a level that should be impossible for someone her apparent age." Captain Reynolds entered the medical bay, his expression grim. "Doctor, I need a full report on our passenger. Intelligence has been asking questions since we transmitted our rescue report." Dr. Martinez handed him a datapad. "What I can tell you for certain is that she belongs to no known species in our databases. Her physiology suggests a natural lifespan measured in millennia, and her neural activity indicates cognitive abilities far beyond most sentient species we've encountered." "What about the energy discharge that Sergeant Kane reported?" Reynolds asked. "That's where things get really interesting," the doctor replied, pulling up holographic displays of energy readings. "The residual traces suggest she somehow manipulated quantum fields at a molecular level. This kind of ability is purely theoretical for our best scientists." Marcus shifted uncomfortably. "Sir, with respect, she's just a scared kid who lost her family. Whatever these readings show, she's been through enough." Captain Reynolds studied Marcus carefully. "Sergeant, I understand your protective instincts, but we need to consider the bigger picture. If this child possesses abilities we don't understand, it could have significant implications for human space." Before anyone could respond, Zara's eyes fluttered open. She looked around the unfamiliar medical bay with those large, dark eyes, taking in the human faces surrounding her. When her gaze fell on Marcus, she relaxed visibly. "Marcus," she said, the universal translator rendering her melodic voice. "Where are we?" "You're safe," Marcus assured her, moving closer to the medical bed. "We're on a human ship. These people are friends. They want to help you." Zara sat up slowly, and Marcus noticed that the air around her seemed to shimmer again, just like it had during the rescue. Dr. Martinez's scanners immediately began registering energy spikes. "Zara," Captain Reynolds said gently, "we'd like to ask you some questions if that's all right. Can you tell us about your people? Where are you from?" The little girl looked at Reynolds, then back at Marcus as if seeking permission. Marcus nodded encouragingly. "My people were called the Lumiari," Zara began, her voice carrying a sadness that seemed ancient. "We lived on many worlds, helping other species grow and learn. We were—" "What is your word?" "Teachers? Were?" Dr. Martinez asked softly. "What happened to them?" Zara's expression darkened, and the temperature in the room seemed to drop several degrees. The consuming ones came. They feared our abilities, our knowledge. They hunted us across the galaxy, destroying our worlds, enslaving or killing any they found. The consuming ones? Reynolds prompted. You call them the hegemony, Zara replied. And everyone in the room went rigid. The hegemony was humanity's greatest threat, a militant alliance of several aggressive species that had been expanding across the galaxy for the past century. They were responsible for the destruction of dozens of civilizations and were slowly but steadily pushing toward human space. The hegemony did this to your people? Marcus asked, his voice tight with anger. Zara nodded. They said the Lumiari made other species too strong, too independent. They could not control worlds where we had taught the people to think for themselves, to defend against tyranny. So they hunted us to extinction. But you survived, Dr. Martinez observed. A few did. My parents hid me, taught me to suppress my abilities, to appear weak and helpless. They said one day when I was old enough and strong enough I would help restore balance to the galaxy. Zara looked directly at Marcus. They said I would know the right people when I found them. People who fight for others, not for conquest. Captain Reynolds exchanged glances with Dr. Martinez. Zara, what kind of abilities did your people have? The air around Zara began to glow softly. Without warning, every piece of electronic equipment in the medical bay began operating at peak efficiency. Damaged circuits repaired themselves, power cells recharged to full capacity, and even the ship's quantum computer began processing data at speeds that should have been impossible. We could touch the fundamental forces, Zara explained matter-of-factly. Energy, matter, space, time. We understood how they connected, how to help them work in harmony. We taught other species to build better ships, to heal their sick, to defend their homes. We made the galaxy a more peaceful place. Dr. Martinez stared at her instruments in wonder. You're not just manipulating energy. You're optimizing quantum efficiency at a universal level. This is beyond anything we thought possible. But the hegemony saw this as a threat, Reynolds concluded. Yes, they prefer weak enemies. When people can defend themselves properly, the hegemony cannot win. Zara looked around the room at the humans surrounding her. But humans are different. You fight not because you must, but because it is right. My parents told me to watch for such people. Marcus felt a chill run down his spine. Zara, are you saying your parents knew about humans? They knew humans would eventually meet the hegemony in battle. They said when that time came, the Lumiari who remained would need to choose sides. Her large eyes focused on Marcus with startling intensity. They said I should look for humans who save others even when it costs them something. The implications hit everyone in the room simultaneously. Zara wasn't just a refugee. She was potentially humanity's greatest ally in the coming war with the hegemony. Her people's knowledge and abilities could tip the balance of power in the galaxy. But she was also just a child who had lost everything. And Marcus could see the weight of responsibility crushing down on her small shoulders. Hey, Marcus said gently, sitting on the edge of her medical bed. Whatever happens, whatever you decide to do, you're not alone anymore. You have a family now, us. For the first time since he'd found her, Zara smiled. It was like watching a star being born. 3 weeks after arriving aboard the Resilience, Zara had transformed from a frightened refugee into something that both amazed and concerned the crew. She moved through the ship with growing confidence, her natural curiosity leading her to ask endless questions about human technology, culture, and most surprisingly, their military strategies. Marcus found her in the ship's observation deck, staring out at the stars while data streams flowed across multiple holographic displays around her. She had somehow interfaced directly with the ship's computer systems without using any visible technology. Learning about stellar navigation? Marcus asked, settling beside her on the viewing bench. Learning about humans, Zara replied, gesturing to the displays showing historical records, military reports, and cultural databases. Your species is fascinating, Marcus. Most civilizations the Lumiari encountered had either given up fighting or fought only for selfish reasons. But humans fight for principles, even when it seems hopeless. Marcus watched the data streams, recognizing battle reports from humanity's conflicts with various hostile species over the past century. Not all of our fights have been noble, Zara. We've made plenty of mistakes. Yes, she agreed, highlighting several darker chapters in human history. But you learn from them. You change. The hegemony does not change. They only consume and destroy. This is why my parents believed humans might be the key to stopping them. The observation deck's doors hissed open. and Captain Reynolds entered with Dr. Martinez and Admiral Chen, the commanding officer of the local defense fleet who had arrived via fast courier ship to meet Zara personally. "I hope we're not interrupting," Admiral Chen said, though his tone suggested this was not a social visit. Zara immediately closed all the holographic displays with a gesture. "Not at all, Admiral. I was hoping to speak with you." Admiral Chen, a woman in her 60s with silver hair and sharp eyes, studied Zara carefully. "I've read Dr. Martinez's reports about your abilities. Impressive, but I need to understand something. If your people were so powerful, how did the hegemony manage to defeat them?" It was a blunt question, but Zara didn't seem offended. "Because we were teachers, not warriors. We could enhance the natural abilities of others, but we rarely used our powers for destruction. The Lumiari believed that violence corrupted the very forces we worked with. And now," Admiral Chen pressed, "are you still bound by those beliefs?" Zara was quiet for a long moment, her young face showing an ancient sadness. "My parents died believing in those principles. But they also told me that sometimes to preserve peace one must fight for it. The hegemony will never stop expanding unless someone stops them." Dr. Martinez leaned forward. "Zara, we've been analyzing the energy readings from your rescue. What you did to those Vorthak weapons, could you do that on a larger scale? I could disable every ship in a fleet without harming the crews," Zara replied simply. "Or I could enhance your weapons and shields to make them far more effective than the hegemony expects." "But there is something more important I can offer." Admiral Chen raised an eyebrow. "What's that?" Zara gestured, and a three-dimensional map of the galaxy appeared between them, showing known hegemony territories, neutral zones, and human space. "Knowledge. I know where they build their ships, how their technology works, where their supply lines are weakest. Most importantly, I know their greatest secret." The map zoomed in on a region deep in hegemony space, highlighting a single star system surrounded by massive defensive installations. "This is Nexus Prime, the hegemony's central command world. They believe no one knows its location except their highest leaders." Marcus felt his blood chill. "How do you know about this place?" "Because it used to be Luminar, the homeworld of my people," Zara replied, her voice carrying centuries of pain. "They built their capital on the grave of my civilization. Every strategic decision, every military campaign originates from there. If someone could strike at Nexus Prime, the hegemony would collapse into warring factions within months." Admiral Chen studied the map intently. "The defenses around that system look impenetrable. Even if we knew where it was, we couldn't mount an assault with our current capabilities." "Not with human technology alone," Zara agreed. "But if I were to enhance your ships, your weapons, your shields, it might be possible." "What would that involve?" Dr. Martinez asked, though her expression suggested she already suspected the answer. "I would need to come with you," Zara said simply. "My powers work best when I am physically present. I could make your fleet invisible to their sensors, strengthen your hulls to withstand their weapons, and overload their systems from within their own network." "Absolutely not," Marcus said immediately. "Zara, you're talking about walking into the heart of enemy territory. It's too dangerous." Zara turned to look at him with those large ancient eyes. "Marcus, the hegemony has a new campaign planned. I saw it in their captured communications that your intelligence officers have been decoding. They call it the final cleansing. They intend to wipe out humanity and a dozen other species over the next 5 years." The silence in the observation deck was deafening. Admiral Chen's voice was barely above a whisper. "How long do we have?" 6 months before they begin moving their fleets into position. 1 year before the attacks begin." Zara's image of the galaxy shifted, showing projected hegemony fleet movements that painted a terrifying picture of coordinated genocide. "They have learned from their past mistakes. This time they will not stop until every independent world has been conquered or destroyed." Captain Reynolds had been silent throughout the conversation, but now he spoke up. "There has to be another way. Some solution that doesn't involve putting a child in the middle of a war zone." "I am not a child," Zara replied, and for a moment her voice carried the weight of millennia. "I am the last Lumiari, the heir to knowledge and responsibility that I never wanted but cannot abandon. My people died believing that someday balance would be restored to the galaxy. If I do nothing, their sacrifice was meaningless." Marcus stood up abruptly, walking to the viewport and staring out at the stars. "If we do this, if we attempt something this insane, what guarantee do we have that it will work?" "None," Zara admitted. But I can guarantee what will happen if we do nothing. Every human world will burn, just like mine did. Every species that values freedom will be enslaved or exterminated. The hegemony will rule over a galaxy of corpses and servants. Admiral Chen exchanged glances with the other officers. I need to discuss this with the Defense Council. Zara, would you be willing to demonstrate your capabilities to our military leadership? They'll need to see what you can do before they'll authorize any kind of mission. Of course, Zara replied. But Admiral, there is one more thing you should know. I am not the only survivor of my people. Everyone in the room turned to stare at her. There are others? Dr. Martinez asked. 3 others that I know of scattered across the galaxy, hiding as I was hiding. If I reveal myself by using my full powers, they will sense it. They will know that someone has chosen to fight back. Zara's expression grew determined. The question is whether they will join us or whether they will remain hidden in fear. Marcus turned from the viewport, his decision made. Then we better make sure we give them something worth fighting for. The Titan defense station orbited Earth's moon, its massive bulk bristling with humanity's most advanced weapons and shielding systems. It served as both the headquarters of the Colonial Defense Force and humanity's ultimate fallback position. Today, it would witness something unprecedented in human history. Marcus stood beside Zara in the station's primary tactical center, surrounded by the highest-ranking military officers in human space. Admiral Chen had spent 3 days convincing the Defense Council to allow this demonstration, and the tension in the room was thick enough to cut with a knife. Senators, admirals, distinguished colleagues, Admiral Chen began, addressing the assembled leadership. What you are about to witness will challenge everything we thought we knew about the limits of technology and warfare. I ask that you keep an open mind. Zara stepped forward, looking impossibly small among the towering military officers and politicians. She wore a simple white dress that Dr. Martinez had found for her, but there was nothing childlike about the ancient wisdom in her eyes. Before I begin, Zara said, her voice carrying clearly through the chamber's acoustics, I want you to understand what I am offering and what it will cost. The Lumiari were not gods, despite what some species believed. We were simply beings who learned to work in harmony with the fundamental forces of existence. This knowledge comes with great responsibility. Senator Williams, the head of the Defense Council, leaned forward. Child, we appreciate your situation, but we need practical demonstrations, not philosophy lectures. Can you actually do what Admiral Chen claims? Zara nodded calmly. I will show you 3 things. First, how I can enhance your existing technology. Second, how I can defend against hegemony weapons. Third, how I can strike at their infrastructure without destroying it. She gestured toward the chamber's massive holographic display, which showed a real-time view of the defense station's exterior. Admiral Chen, please have your weapon systems target the nearest asteroid field. Use maximum power. Admiral Chen gave the order, and the station's primary railgun batteries swiveled toward a cluster of rocky debris several thousand kilometers away. The weapons charged with a deep thrumming sound that everyone could feel in their bones. Fire, Admiral Chen commanded. The railguns discharged with brilliant flashes of light, sending streams of accelerated metal toward the asteroids. The shots were perfect, but the asteroids were distant targets. The weapons would hit, but with limited effect due to the range. That's when Zara acted. She raised her hands, and the air around her began to glow with that familiar silver light. The energy expanded outward, flowing through the station's hull and into the weapon systems. On the holographic display, everyone watched in amazement as the railgun projectiles suddenly accelerated far beyond their normal velocity, their energy signatures increasing by orders of magnitude. When the enhanced projectiles hit the asteroid field, they didn't just penetrate the rocks, they completely vaporized them, leaving nothing but glowing plasma where solid matter had been moments before. The weapon systems are reading power efficiency at 300% of normal, reported the station's tactical officer, his voice filled with disbelief. Zara lowered her hands, the glow fading. I enhanced the magnetic field coherence and reduced friction at the molecular level. Your weapons are now operating closer to their theoretical maximum potential. Senator Williams was speechless, but Admiral Torres, the head of fleet operations, stepped forward. That's impressive, but how do we know it works against hegemony shields? An excellent question, Zara replied. Admiral Chen, do you have any captured hegemony technology we can test against? We have a shield generator taken from a hegemony cruiser. Admiral Chen confirmed. It's installed in Testing Bay 7. Perfect. Please activate it at maximum power. The testing bay's cameras showed the alien shield generator humming to life, creating a shimmering energy barrier that had previously proven impenetrable to human weapons. The hegemony's shields operated on principles that human science was still trying to understand. Zara closed her eyes, extending her consciousness toward the distant shield generator. Hegemony technology relies on forced quantum entanglement to maintain barrier integrity. They use brute force where elegance would be more effective. The shield began to flicker on the display. Zara wasn't attacking it directly. Instead, she was gently adjusting the quantum frequencies until the forced entanglement began to collapse under its own inefficiency. Within moments, the supposedly impenetrable barrier simply dissolved. The shield generator is undamaged, reported the testing bay supervisor. It's as if she convinced it to turn itself off. Admiral Torres nodded slowly. And the third demonstration? For this, I will need access to one of your communication arrays, Zara said. I want to show you how I can reach into hegemony networks without them detecting the intrusion. Admiral Chen hesitated. Zara, if you access their networks from here, won't that reveal our location? Not if I do it correctly, Zara assured him. I will route the connection through 17 different quantum relays across the galaxy. To them, it will appear to originate from empty space. With obvious reluctance, Admiral Chen authorized access to a secure communication array. Zara placed her hands on the control console, and the silver glow spread through the entire system. The main display shifted to show data streams flowing at impossible speeds through encrypted channels. I am now inside the Hegemony's Central Command Network, Zara announced casually. I can see their fleet positions, supply schedules, and communication logs. I am also downloading their complete tactical database. The tactical officers stared at their screens in amazement as terabytes of classified hegemony intelligence flowed into human databases. Star charts showing secret bases, communication codes, even personnel records of high-ranking hegemony officials. This is impossible, whispered the head of intelligence. Their encryption should be unbreakable. Encryption assumes your enemy doesn't understand the underlying quantum mathematics, Zara explained. The hegemony learned their quantum theory from studying destroyed Lumiari technology. They never understood the fundamental principles, so their systems have inherent weaknesses. She paused, her expression growing serious. I am also planting logic viruses in their network. When activated, these will cascade through every connected system, causing widespread technical failures without permanent damage. Think of it as giving their entire fleet a very bad headache. The data download completed and Zara stepped back from the console. The room fell silent as the implications sank in. She had just demonstrated the ability to enhance human weapons beyond their design limits, neutralize hegemony defenses, and penetrate their most secure networks. Senator Williams finally found his voice. Young lady, if you can do all of this, why do you need our help at all? Couldn't you simply shut down their entire civilization from here? Zara shook her head. The hegemony learned from their war against my people. Their most critical systems are now isolated from their main networks, accessible only through direct physical contact. Nexus Prime, their command center, exists in a quantum bubble that cannot be reached remotely. To destroy their ability to coordinate the final cleansing, someone has to go there in person. Someone? Admiral Chen asked. I have to go there, Zara corrected, but I cannot pilot a ship through hegemony space alone. Nor can I fight off their fleets if I am discovered. I need human courage, human tactical thinking, and human stubbornness to succeed. Marcus, who had been silent throughout the demonstration, finally spoke up. She needs soldiers who won't give up no matter how bad things get. That's what we do best. Admiral Torres studied the tactical data still flowing across the screens. The Defense Council will need to vote on this. But I have to ask, what happens to you if we attempt this mission and fail? Zara's ancient eyes held no fear, only determination. Then I will die as my parents did, fighting for the freedom of others. But if we succeed, we will give the galaxy something it has not had for 1,000 years. Hope, the bear. Room erupted in urgent discussions as military. Leaders and politicians began planning for a war that would determine the fate of every free species in the galaxy. But Marcus only had eyes for the small alien girl who had just offered to sacrifice everything to save humanity from a threat they barely understood. The real question was no longer whether they could trust her power. It was whether they were worthy of her faith in them, 2 months after the demonstration at Titan Station, the secret shipyard at Wolf 359 hummed with activity that would have been impossible just weeks before. The facility had been expanded using Lumiari-enhanced construction techniques, allowing human engineers to build faster and more efficiently than ever before. At the heart of the operation, a single ship was taking shape, a vessel unlike anything humanity had ever conceived. The ship had no official name on any records. The crews simply called it Phoenix, though Marcus suspected Zara had chosen that designation for symbolic reasons. It was built using a hybrid of human engineering and Lumiari enhancement, creating something that was both familiar and alien. Marcus found Zara in the ship's engineering section, working alongside human technicians to integrate her people's quantum harmonics into the vessel's core systems. She had grown in the past 2 months, not physically but in confidence and purpose. The frightened child he had rescued was gone, replaced by someone who understood her destiny. "How are the modifications coming?" Marcus asked, watching as Zara's touch caused the ship's power conduits to glow with that distinctive silver light. "Better than I hoped," Zara replied, stepping back to admire their work. "Human engineering is incredibly adaptable. Your people build things to be repaired and improved, not just to function. It makes enhancement much easier." Chief Engineer Rodriguez, a grizzled veteran who had initially been skeptical of alien magic, now looked at Zara with something approaching reverence. "Sergeant Kane, this kid just boosted our engine efficiency by 400%. We're looking at faster than light speeds that should be theoretically impossible." "It's not magic," Zara corrected gently. Though she smiled at the engineer's enthusiasm, "it's just a matter of understanding how space and time prefer to work together, rather than forcing them apart." Marcus nodded, though he understood perhaps 1 word in 10 of Zara's technical explanations. "Any word from the other Lumiari you mentioned?" Zara's expression grew thoughtful. "Yes, actually. 3 days ago I felt resonances. Responses to the quantum signature I've been broadcasting. 2 of them are moving toward human space. The third—" She paused, her face troubled. "What about the third?" "The third is afraid. I can sense that much, but they're not responding to my calls. They may be too traumatized by what happened to our people to risk exposure." Admiral Chen's voice came over the ship's communication system. "All senior staff to the briefing room. We've just received priority intelligence from the hegemony networks." Marcus and Zara made their way to the ship's central briefing room, where Captain Sarah Mitchell, the Phoenix's commanding officer, was already reviewing data streams on the holographic display. Mitchell had volunteered for this mission despite knowing it was likely suicide. Her motivation simple. Her homeworld had been one of the first targets in the hegemony's expansion. "The timeline has accelerated," Admiral Chen announced as the team assembled. "Our intelligence intercepts show that the hegemony has moved up their final cleansing operation by 3 months. They're responding to increased resistance activities across their border worlds." Dr. Martinez, who had insisted on joining the mission as Zara's medical support, pulled up tactical displays showing hegemony fleet movements. "They're consolidating forces at 17 staging areas. Once they begin moving, they'll hit 12 star systems simultaneously, including Earth. How long do we have?" Captain Mitchell asked. 6 weeks, Admiral Chen replied grimly. "After that, the largest military fleet in galactic history will be heading straight for us." Zara studied the data with her unnaturally mature gaze. "They're making a mistake," she observed. "By consolidating so many forces, they've created vulnerabilities in their supply lines and communication networks." "Vulnerabilities we can exploit?" Marcus asked. "Perhaps, but only if we can reach Nexus Prime before they launch the operation. Once their fleets are in motion, it will be too late to stop them." Lieutenant Commander Torres, the ship's tactical officer, highlighted their projected route through hegemony space. "Even with the Phoenix's enhanced capabilities, it's a 3-week journey to reach Nexus Prime. That assumes we don't encounter any significant resistance." "We will encounter resistance," Zara said with certainty. "The hegemony has early warning stations throughout their territory, but I may have a solution for that." She gestured, and the display shifted to show quantum field maps that meant nothing to the humans present, but seemed to make perfect sense to her. "There are natural subspace currents that flow through this region of space. Think of them as underground rivers. If I can align the Phoenix's quantum signature with these currents, we can travel unseen through most of hegemony territory." Chief Engineer Rodriguez leaned forward. What would that require? Constant enhancement of the ship's systems throughout the journey. I would need to maintain quantum resonance for 3 weeks straight, adjusting our frequency to match the subspace currents while keeping our shields and weapons at peak efficiency. Dr. Martinez looked concerned. Zara, that kind of sustained energy output could be dangerous for you. We don't know the long-term effects of using your abilities so intensively. The long-term effects of not using them would be worse, Zara replied simply. If the final cleansing succeeds, there won't be a long-term to worry about. Admiral Chen's expression was grim. There's something else. Our deep space monitoring stations have detected unusual energy signatures along the hegemony border. We think they're testing new weapons specifically designed to counter Lumiari abilities. Zara went very still. What kind of energy signatures? Quantum disruptors. Weapons that appear to target the kind of field manipulations you use. Admiral Chen pulled up scanner readings that showed massive energy spikes followed by dead zones where no quantum activity could be detected. They've been testing them on captured alien technologies. The implications hit everyone in the room simultaneously. The hegemony wasn't just preparing for their final cleansing. They were specifically preparing for the return of the Lumiari. They know, Marcus said quietly. Somehow they know you're still alive. Zara nodded slowly. When I accessed their networks from Titan Station, I was careful. But the hegemony has had centuries to study Lumiari quantum signatures. They may have detected traces of my presence. Which means they'll be ready for us, Captain Mitchell concluded. Not necessarily, Zara replied, her voice gaining strength. Yes, they know someone with Lumiari abilities access their systems. But they don't know who, they don't know where, and they don't know how many of us there are. Fear can be as powerful a weapon as any gun. She stood, moving to the center of the holographic display and placing her hands on the control interface. The data stream shifted, showing her analysis of hegemony defensive positions and fleet deployments. Look at their formations, she said, highlighting specific tactical arrangements. They're spreading their quantum disruptors throughout their fleet, rather than concentrating them. They're afraid of a distributed attack by multiple Lumiari working together. Marcus felt a grin spreading across his face. So we give them what they're expecting. Exactly. If I can contact the other 2 Lumiari who are moving toward human space, we can coordinate our approach to Nexus Prime. Let the hegemony try to defend against 3 separate angles of attack. Admiral Chen studied the tactical possibilities. It's still incredibly dangerous. Even with Lumiari support, you'll be flying into the heart of enemy territory with a single ship. Admiral, Captain Mitchell said quietly. With respect, we've been flying into impossible situations for centuries. It's what humans do best. Zara looked around the room at the faces of the humans who had chosen to follow her into what might be the last battle any of them would ever fight. My parents told me that humans fight hardest when the odds are worst. I begin to understand what they meant. Marcus placed a hand on her shoulder. Zara, whatever happens out there, you won't face it alone. That's a promise, as if in response to his words. The ship's quantum sensors detected 2 new energy signatures approaching Wolf 359. The readings were unmistakably Lumiari, and they were moving fast, it seems, Zara said with the first truly happy smile Marcus had seen from her. That I'm not the only one ready to come out of hiding. The gathering storm was about to become a hurricane, and the hegemony had no idea what was heading their way. The Phoenix slipped through hegemony space like a ghost, following the subspace currents that Zara navigated with an intuition born from millennia of genetic memory. For 2 weeks they had managed to avoid detection, but Marcus could see the strain wearing on Zara as she maintained their quantum concealment around the clock. She stood at the center of the ship's bridge, her hands constantly moving as she adjusted their resonance frequency to match the shifting subspace flows. The silver light around her had grown dimmer over the past few days, and Dr. Martinez's concerned glances weren't lost on any of the crew. Zara, Marcus said gently, you need to rest. We can drop out of the current for a few hours. No, she replied without opening her eyes. We're approaching the outer perimeter of Nexus Prime's defense grid. If we drop concealment now, they'll detect us before we can reach the rendezvous point. The rendezvous point was a dead system 12 hours from Nexus Prime, where they were supposed to meet the other 2 Lumiari, who had answered Zara's call. Keth and Lyra had spent the past 2 weeks racing across the galaxy in ships provided by species grateful to the ancient Lumiari for past aid. Contact bearing, 037, announced Lieutenant Torres from the tactical station. 2 ships, unknown configuration, but the quantum signatures match what we're looking for. Captain Mitchell nodded. Drop us out of the current, Zara. Let's see our allies. Zara finally opened her eyes and slowly lowered her hands. The constant silver glow around her faded, and Marcus caught her as she swayed with exhaustion. We're here, she whispered. The others made it. The Phoenix emerged from subspace concealment in the shadow of a dead planet, its surface scarred by some ancient catastrophe. 2 ships waited for them, vessels that bore no resemblance to any human design, their hulls seeming to shift and flow like liquid metal. Incoming transmission, reported Communications Officer Park. Multiple frequencies, quantum encoded. Put it through, Captain Mitchell ordered. The main display shimmered, revealing 2 figures that were unmistakably Lumiari, despite their apparent differences from Zara. Keth appeared older, his blue skin bearing intricate patterns that seemed to move of their own accord, while Lyra looked like she could be Zara's older sister, though her silver hair flowed with internal light. Little star, Lyra said, her voice carrying warmth despite the translation delay. We felt your call across the void. You have grown strong. Keth's expression was more serious. Strong, yes, but not wise. Child, do you understand what you are asking us to do? Nexus Prime is not just a fortress, it is a wound in reality itself, carved from the corpse of our homeworld. Zara straightened, drawing strength from somewhere deep within herself. I understand, Elder Keth, but if we do nothing, the hegemony will complete what they started. Every free species in this galaxy will share our people's fate. And these humans? Lyra asked, studying the bridge crew with eyes that seemed to see beyond the physical. You trust them with our most sacred knowledge? Marcus stepped forward, not wanting Zara to bear this burden alone. With respect, we're not asking for your sacred knowledge. We're offering to share the risk. Whatever happens at Nexus Prime, we face it together. Keth's pattern shifted, expressing what might have been amusement. The human speaks as if he understands what awaits us there. Tell me, warrior, are you prepared to see the bones of a civilization ground to dust for the crime of teaching others to think freely? Sir, Marcus replied, his voice steady. I've seen what the hegemony does to worlds that resist them. If Nexus Prime is built on the grave of your people, then it's time to give them a proper burial. The 2 elder Lumiari exchanged glances that spoke of communication beyond human perception. Finally, Lyra nodded. Very well, but understand that once we begin this assault, there can be no retreat. The quantum barriers around Nexus Prime will collapse once breached, trapping us inside until the mission is complete. Dr. Martinez stepped forward. What exactly is our objective once we reach the planet? Zara activated the holographic display, showing detailed scans of Nexus Prime that she had somehow acquired. The hegemony's central command computer is housed in what used to be the great library of our people. It contains not just their military coordination protocols, but the complete cultural and technological database of every species they've conquered. A trophy room, Captain Mitchell said with disgust. Worse than that, Keth replied. It's a control system. They study the conquered cultures to better understand how to dominate them. Every time a species resists their rule, the hegemony refines their oppression techniques based on data stored in that computer. Lyra's expression grew determined. If we can reach the central core, we can do more than just disrupt their final cleansing operation. We can release every piece of stolen knowledge back to its rightful peoples. And destroy the hegemony's ability to coordinate their empire, Zara added. Without the cultural data they've stolen, they won't understand their subject species well enough to control them effectively. Marcus studied the tactical display showing Nexus Prime's defenses. The planet was surrounded by 3 rings of defense platforms, each armed with weapons that made human battleships look like toys. How do we get through all of that? The same way my people originally built those defenses, Zara replied. With quantum resonance and harmonic manipulation, Keth, Lyra, and I will need to work in perfect synchronization to create a passage through the defensive grid. And once we're on the surface? Torres asked. Keth's expression grew grim. The surface of Nexus Prime is a monument to our people's destruction. Every building, every street is built from the ruins of our cities. The hegemony wants visitors to understand that resistance is futile. But they made one mistake, Lyra said with a smile that didn't reach her ancient eyes. They built their central command complex directly over the ruins of our most sacred site. the quantum heart that connected all Lumiari knowledge across the galaxy. Zara's eyes widened with understanding. The heart still exists? Dormant but intact, Keth confirmed. The hegemony doesn't understand its true nature. They think it's just decorative crystal formations in their building's foundation. Marcus felt a chill of anticipation. What happens if you wake it up? Then every piece of knowledge the Lumiari ever shared with other species becomes available to those who need it most, Zara replied. Defensive technologies, medical advances, agricultural techniques, everything our people gave to the galaxy before the hegemony destroyed us. Captain Mitchell was quiet for a moment, processing the implications. You're talking about fundamentally changing the balance of power in the galaxy. We're talking about giving freedom a fighting chance, Lyra corrected. The hegemony wins because they ensure their enemies remain weak and divided. If we can restore the knowledge they've stolen and suppressed, every species under their rule will suddenly remember how to fight back. The three ships moved closer together, and Marcus could feel the quantum fields generated by the Lumiari, resonating between the vessels. It was like standing next to a barely contained star. Final approach begins in 6 hours, Captain Mitchell announced. Use that time to rest, check your equipment, and make your peace with whatever gods you believe in. This is either going to be the greatest victory in galactic history, or the most spectacular failure. Marcus looked at Zara, who seemed to have found new strength in the presence of her fellow Lumiari. Ready for this? She smiled, and for a moment she looked like the child he had rescued from the rubble so many months ago. Marcus, I've been ready for this my entire life. The question is whether the hegemony is ready for what's coming. As the three ships prepared for their final approach to Nexus Prime, quantum storms began building around them, visible manifestations of power that had been sleeping for 1,000 years. The last children of a murdered civilization were coming home, and they were bringing the fury of every species the hegemony had ever wronged with them. The deep strike was about to begin, and the galaxy would never be the same. The three ships approached Nexus Prime as reality itself seemed to bend around them. Zara stood between Keth and Lyra on the Phoenix's bridge, their combined quantum manipulation, creating a corridor of twisted space-time that made the hegemony's sensors see nothing but empty void. Marcus watched in amazement as the defensive platforms they passed through showed no reaction to their presence. Weapons that could destroy entire fleets remained silent, their targeting systems convinced that the ships were merely cosmic dust. The power required for such an illusion should have been impossible, but the three Lumiari made it look effortless. Beginning atmospheric entry, Captain Mitchell announced. All hands prepare for surface landing. Through the viewports, Marcus could see Nexus Prime spread out below them, and it was exactly as horrible as Keth had described. The planet's surface was a vast necropolis built from the ruins of Lumiari civilization. Crystalline spires that had once reached toward the stars now served as foundations for brutal hegemony architecture. Beautiful organic curves were carved with angular military fortifications. It was a deliberate desecration, designed to break the spirit of anyone who remembered what this world had once been. There, Zara pointed toward a massive complex at the center of the main continent. The Central Command. They built it directly over the ruins of the Great Library. The building was a monument to hegemony power, a black pyramid that seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it. But Marcus could see the crystalline structures beneath it, visible through the gaps in the alien architecture like bones showing through torn flesh. Landing coordinates locked, Torres reported. But sir, we're reading massive energy signatures from that building. Whatever's in there, it's heavily defended. Not defended, Lyra corrected, her voice filled with ancient pain. Imprisoned. Can you feel it, little star? The heart calls to us. Zara closed her eyes, extending her consciousness toward the building below. It's still alive, she whispered. Trapped beneath their machinery, but alive. It's been waiting for us. The ships landed in a clearing that had once been a park, now overgrown with twisted vegetation that reflected the wrongness of this place. The moment they touched down, alarms began sounding across the complex. Their quantum masking had hidden them from the orbital defenses, but ground-level sensors were more sophisticated. So much for stealth, Marcus said, checking his weapons one final time. We never expected to remain hidden once we landed, Keth replied. The hegemony will throw everything they have at us. Are your people ready for that kind of fight? Captain Mitchell's smile was predatory. Our people have been preparing for this fight their entire lives. They just didn't know it until now. The assault team consisted of Marcus, Captain Mitchell, Dr. Martinez, and 6 of the Phoenix's best Marines, along with the 3 Lumiari. As they approached the Central Command building, hegemony forces began pouring out of defensive positions that had been hidden throughout the complex. The enemy soldiers were a mixture of species, not just the reptilian Vorthek that Marcus had encountered before, but dozens of different alien races all serving the hegemony's empire. Some were volunteers who had embraced the Conqueror's ideology, but Marcus could see others who wore the neural control collars that marked them as slaves forced to fight. "I hate shooting people who don't have a choice," muttered Corporal Santos, one of the Marines. "Then let's give them a choice," Zara replied. She raised her hands, and silver light poured from her toward the enemy forces. When it touched the enslaved soldiers, their neural collars simply fell away, sparking and dead. Suddenly, half the hegemony's defensive force stopped fighting and began looking around in confusion as their free will returned. The chaos that followed was beautiful to watch. Freed slaves turned on their former masters, and the hegemony's carefully organized defense collapsed into a 3-way battle that the assault team used to advance toward the building's entrance. "The main doors are sealed with quantum locks," Lyra observed as they reached the pyramid's base. "Not anymore," Keth replied, placing his hands on the crystalline structures visible beneath the black metal. The ancient Lumiari technology recognized one of its creators and opened passages that the hegemony had never known existed. They moved through corridors that were a bizarre mixture of hegemony brutality and Lumiari beauty. The Conquerors had tried to destroy or hide every trace of the original builders, but the quantum resonance that connected all Lumiari structures made complete destruction impossible. "Contact front," one of the Marines called out as they entered a vast chamber that had once been the library's main hall. A squad of hegemony elite guards waited for them, armed with the quantum disruptor weapons that had been designed specifically to counter Lumiari abilities. The weapons fired bursts of chaotic energy that disrupted quantum fields on contact. "Stay back," Zara warned the human soldiers. "Those weapons are meant for us." The 3 Lumiari moved forward together, their combined power creating shields that absorbed and dissipated the disruptor fire. But Marcus could see the strain it was putting on them. These weapons were more effective than expected. "We need to reach the central core," Lyra said through gritted teeth as another disruptor blast shattered part of her quantum shield. "The heart is 3 levels down, directly beneath us." "Then we go down fighting," Marcus replied, leading the Marines in a flanking maneuver that took the hegemony guards by surprise. Human weapons might not be as advanced as alien technology, but human tactics had been refined in centuries of warfare against impossible odds. The battle through the building was brutal, but brief. The hegemony forces were well-equipped and well-trained, but they weren't prepared for the combination of Lumiari power and human stubbornness. Every time the defenders thought they had contained the assault, the attackers found a new way through, over, or around their defenses. Finally, they reached the central core, a chamber carved from the living crystal that had once been the heart of Lumiari civilization. The quantum heart pulsed weakly beneath layers of hegemony machinery, its light dim but persistent. "It's beautiful," Dr. Martinez whispered, staring at the crystal formations that seemed to contain entire galaxies within their structure. "It was the repository of all our knowledge," Keth explained as he began removing the alien machinery that had been built around the ancient artifact. "Every discovery, every advancement, every lesson learned by our people across 10,000 years of civilization. And now it can be shared again," Zara added, placing her hands on the central crystal. "Not just with those who seek power, but with all who need the knowledge to defend themselves." The moment she made contact, the entire chamber erupted in light. The quantum heart awakened fully for the first time in a millennium, its consciousness reaching out across the galaxy to touch every world, every species, every mind ready to receive its gift. Marcus felt knowledge flowing past him like a river of light. Medical techniques that could cure diseases thought incurable, agricultural methods that could feed billions, defensive technologies that could protect worlds from conquest. All of it freely given without condition or cost. Across the galaxy, the effect was immediate. On worlds under hegemony rule, enslaved populations suddenly remembered technologies their ancestors had known. Ships began appearing with weapons and shields that matched or exceeded hegemony capabilities. Resistance movements that had been crushed by superior firepower found themselves equipped with tools that leveled the playing field. "The final cleansing fleets," Captain Mitchell said, monitoring the tactical displays on her portable command unit. "They're reporting massive technical failures across all their ships. Their quantum disruptors are overloading, their shields are failing, and their navigation systems are going haywire. The knowledge includes how to counter every weapon the hegemony stole from conquered species," Lyra explained. "Their entire technological advantage just evaporated. But the awakening of the quantum heart had one more effect that none of them had anticipated. As the ancient crystal reached full power, it began calling to other Lumiari artifacts scattered across the galaxy, artifacts that had been dormant since the fall of their civilization." "I can feel them," Zara said wonderingly. "Other hearts, other repositories of knowledge awakening on dozens of worlds. The hegemony tried to destroy our people, but they couldn't destroy what we built." Marcus looked around the chamber at the faces of his companions, human and Lumiari alike, and realized they had done something unprecedented. They hadn't just won a battle or even a war. They had restored hope to an entire galaxy. "So what happens now?" he asked. Zara smiled, and in that expression he could see both the frightened child he had rescued and the ancient guardian she had become. "Now we go home, Marcus, and we help every free species in the galaxy learn to use the gifts my people left for them." Outside the chamber, alarms were still sounding as the hegemony's empire began its collapse. Fleets were abandoning their positions as enslaved crews broke free and took control of their ships. Colonial governors found themselves facing rebellions armed with technology they didn't understand and couldn't counter. The age of the hegemony was ending, brought down not by superior force but by the simple act of returning stolen knowledge to those who,